Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Chris with Dirt Road Life here. And today's video is sponsored by Ehaho. They sent us these whip lights. We're gonna do a full unbox, install, review, and go over the features of this product. So let's not drag this out. Let's get right into the unboxing. Let's see what they sent us. All right, we got the two whip lights, of course. Pretty nice looking construction so far. Venture flags, two of those. Two American flags. This looks like the controller here. Got a remote. Some cable ties. And some carabiners. I'm guessing these are for the flags. And then some little D-rings, so we'll see what those are for. Oh, I didn't see these at first either, but we got some Gadsden flags here too. We've also got, way down at the bottom, some instructions, the other Gadsden flag, and a toggle switch. Now, one of the really nice features about these lights is they are quick disconnect. Yeah. So you can pull these off whenever you want. And then there's a small pigtail at the base of this light that you just unhook. So if you wanted to pull this light off, say you were going to go through, smash through some brush or whatever that's going to really mess this stuff up, you pull that pigtail off and then you pull the quick disconnect. But I think the first thing I want to do is go mount these bases and figure out where this pigtail is going to end up. That'll tell us how to route all the rest of our wires, and we can just start going from there. So the KRX actually has whip light mounts on each side of the base of the cage in the rear. But I've also seen people mount them to bed rails on like Polaris Rangers. I've also seen people mount them to the base of their bed. Anywhere you've got a solid mounting point where these aren't gonna just kind of flop all over the base at least, that's probably a reasonable spot to mount these. I think one criticism I would have is this would be nice to be shaped like a hex nut, so you could put a wrench on the top of this as you're tightening the nut on the bottom. But I mean, I'm getting it. I could grab it with a pair of pliers, but then you're gonna mar up the finish. Minor, but that's just one criticism I would have of these. So I just threw some electrical tape around a pair of pliers, make them soft jawed pliers, and that'll be fine. Very minor complaint, like I said. So I've got the lights disconnected at the pigtail. Let's go ahead and throw those up there via the quick disconnects and just make sure where all this stuff is going to end up so we know exactly where we got to get our wires to. There's two methods for wiring these rocker switches. One is for constant power and one is for keyed power. So I'm going to do the keyed power method, and there's just a simple diagram that shows you how to hook up these jumper wires. One thing I forgot to mention is these whip lights do have an option. You can run them as turn signal, brake lights, reverse lights. We're not going to use that option, but these four wires here are for that. And then your two connections for the whip lights are labeled left and right, so that would matter. Obviously, if you're using them as turn signals, we're going to wire them like we are. We're going to use the left for the left and the right for the right, just in case we ever decide to use them as turn signals. I doubt we will, but there's no reason to not do that. So just be mindful of that when you're installing, especially if you're going to use them as turn signals. Looks like there's a big penetration right here where our main wires are running through the back fender wall here. So before I pulled those wires through the firewall, what I did do was put a piece of tape around the end of the one that said it was for the left whip, and that's just because once you get it out here, there's no, honestly they should really put the put a piece of tape around it from the factory that says left or right out here. That'd be a little easier, because once you pull it through, you really don't know. It's marked on the controller in there, and you'd have to kind of pull the wires back to figure out which one's which. Not a big deal, but that'd be really, really easy fix that would make these a little bit more intuitive when you're installing them. So I'm going to run the left through, it came through our firewall penetration right here. I'm going to run it right up the frame rail with some zip ties that they supplied, and then the opening right there is basically at the base of our whip, which you can see. The opposite one, the right hand side, I'm going to run it across this frame rail here behind the firewall, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing just on the opposite side. So be back in a minute. Oh, also I'm going to make my connections and then work my way back this way as I zip tie, so any slack I can pull through the vehicle and wind it up and put a zip tie around it inside the vehicle behind the seat, so it's not back here dangling as a loop somewhere. All my wiring is run back to the whips now, and I looped whatever extra I had. I had extra on the left hand whip because obviously that's not as far of a run. But I pulled this electrical cover off. This is where your starter solenoid is. There's an accessory or a fuse block in here, and I think the computer. But this controller and my pigtail for the turn signals and reverse lights, we're not going to use this. I'm going to just tape this up really good, and I'm going to stick that controller and that pigtail that we're not going to use in there, put the cover back on for a nice clean install and to keep this stuff nice and dry. Now this is a waterproof controller, so you can mount this just about anywhere, but I'm doing this just because it ended up in the perfect spot to where I can hide it. Now that's all tucked in there nicely. The controller's right there. So now we need to get the positive and the ground back behind the dash, because that's where our switch is going to go. We also have a bus bar back there that we're going to tie into. We're going to install our switch next, but first I got to extend these wires. So I'm going to use some heat shrink butt connectors and then heat shrink over top of the butt connectors. You want to melt it. You don't want to burn it up though. I didn't have a piece of black that was the right size, so that'll work. Dunzo. Alright, so we got our wires behind the dash now. Now we have to go ahead and install our switch. So I like to use an oscillating tool for that. You can use a razor blade and just score it a bunch of times, or even a hot razor blade if you have access to one, but this works pretty good too. I'm gonna have to pop some plastic pins, get this out of here. Alright, we got our power and our ground wire from the whip controller that we ran all the way up under the dash here from the back of the vehicle. We've got our hole punched in for our switch, so let's pop that in. Good. Alright, our switch is all wired up. It's this one right here on the bottom, which is the set of wires here. We got ground or power out to our accessory, ground, which this is tied into both the ground from the whip lights, and then goes back to our ground bar right here, our ground on our bus bar. And then we've got power to the positive on the bus bar, which goes to right there. Last thing I want to do is put these flag mounts on. Really simple. These clamps go right around the whips, and I believe get held together with these screws. Flags are installed. One Gadsden, one American flag. Let's get our remote out here. Guess we can go flip these on. All right, let's go ahead and hit this key. Then we'll hit our toggle for the lights. All right, so we've got light. And you can just hit these colors on the remote and it'll change to whatever you want. Like there's green, there's orange, a little bit closer to red there. Got purple, blue, and then you've got speed, which we're gonna try that out, but that allows these lights to basically flash according to how fast or slow you're going. So we'll check that out. They can also beat to the beat of your music, whatever you're listening to. That would be done on an app that you get from the App Store. I've already got this Magic Lantern app, but you can also adjust your color right from the phone here. Again, I can mix these colors up based on whatever I put my finger on the app. So overall impressions of the product, I think they seem really well built. And at the price point, I don't know that you could really beat these. I mentioned a couple things that I would change, but nothing major. You got the quick disconnect, that's a cool feature. They come with clear, concise instructions. You can control them from your app on your phone or from the remote that they come with. We already talked about the speed, how they actually work with how fast you're going in the buggy. That's pretty neat. Comes with your classic ATV, UTV rocker switch. Installs just about like everything else, and just a nice low profile design. So I think it's gonna be, again, hard to beat these at the price point. So I don't know, if somebody wants to send us some other whip lights, we'll try those out and maybe do a comparison. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and we'll see you guys on the next one.